just speak for as long as I can, and then I'm gonna have to run. But anyway, hopefully we find her, because that's really sad. Tragically, I doubt she'll be alive, but we always pray for miracles. So anyway, hello. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and just what led me to write the book. How many of y'all have read my book? Has anyone read the book? Okay, Inez has read the book. Okay, I don't want to give away all the stories, so I'll keep it nice and short. Okay, we don't want to like mess up your interest, because I do want y'all to buy and read the book. So I grew up in Texas, and I'm originally from Houston, and I come from a large family, and I am the fifth of 7 children, and I have been working since I was 15 years old. So I came from a background where if I wanted something, you're going to work for it. Nothing was given to me. That's completely foreign to my imagination. And so I learned hard work. And I would say that's probably one of the most important things that my parents taught me, was the ability to work. Because if you know how to work, the sky's the limit and you can get anything accomplished. And so I did. I was 15 years old when I got my first job. I ended up graduating early from high school when I was 16 years old. And I went off to Brigham Young University. It was an amazing experience. I thought that I would do what most people did. Like my mom, she got married, she had children, and she had this wonderful life. And I just figured, you know, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go to BYU, get married, have children, and I'll never have like a real career, you know. So I go to BYU. I was engaged. I did not end up getting married. I graduated from BYU, and I thought, what am I going to do? Like all my other siblings, they followed a very different path, and I was kind of like the black sheep of my family, but not in a bad way. I just kind of did my own thing. So I did. I decided to move to New York City, of all places. I thought, you know what, that would be cool. And so I had an internship in New York at New York Life Insurance Company, and it was cool. It was fun, but I loved New York. I loved the energy. I thought it was amazing. And so I ended up staying in New York, and then I was there at Merrill Lynch. I ended up getting a job at Merrill Lynch. Yeah, it was a very interesting career path. So, and you can read about it in my book. But at the time of September 11th of 2001, I was actually working for the chairman of Merrill Lynch International. His name was Winthrop H. Smith Jr. His father was the founder of Merrill Lynch. If you've ever heard of Merrill Lynch, Pierce Benjamin Smith, Win Smith was my dad, my boss's dad. So he himself was the chairman of Merrill Lynch International at the time, and it was an incredible experience working for him. And I just, you know, I was this young person from Texas working on Wall Street, and then the next thing you know, I'm witnessing a terrorist attack, and it was absolutely horrifying. I'm sure everybody remembers where they were. At the time, I was barely 23 years old, and it was awful. It's something that I don't really think about a lot. Even to this day, I don't really like to think about it. I think about it on the anniversary, but it's something that sticks with you. And they actually required us to go to therapy. Like anyone that was there at Merrill Lynch, they had like this group therapy session one time, and they're like, you will go to this. And I thought, this is not gonna help me like deal with what I saw. But as we were escaping from the World Financial Center, so I came in through the World Trade Center every day, the North Tower, underneath the, how many of y'all were familiar with the World Trade Center? Okay, so I came into the 19 Portland Street Station stop underneath the World Trade Center. I'd go through the Underground Mall, all of that, and then I walked to the World Financial Center. So that morning, I'd been in that tower, like at the base of the tower, just about 1 hour before the first plane hit. And I just remember thinking, running to the window, because it was like, you know, all glass windows, you know, the building was all glass where I was, and I could see everything. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, people are dying. Like, this is terrible. Like, it was shocking. I couldn't wrap my head around it, just like I'm sure some of y'all. Were any of y'all down at the World Trade Center when it happened? Where were you at?
Well, I was literally down under the World Trade Center, by what you see the Fulton Fish Markets. Like, I was looking in my rearview mirror, my friends, like I heard a small plane hit. I literally saw, we didn't know at that point, it was just a commercial jetliner.
Yeah.
And then I was like going through the Holland Tunnel, you guys all know New York. I was going to New Jersey, and then everything happened, and I was stuck in New Jersey overnight.
Yeah.
Blocked off New York City.
So you weren't like in the World Trade Center?
I wasn't in the World Trade Center.
Okay, you were driving.
No,
Okay.
I happened to be right down there that morning.
Got it, yeah. So I see the first thing.
You were in one of the
I
towers?
was in the financial center. So like I was in the World Financial, like I don't know if you're familiar with
Was
the
that
World
one
Financial
like, did that one collapse too? Yeah.
7 World Trade Center collapsed, so I was in just right across the west, like there was a bridge that connects it. Actually, there's still a bridge, like there is, anyway. The bridge is obviously gone now, they've like redeveloped the whole thing and it's not the same at all, but, so I just remember thinking, are they gonna fly into my building next? Like what's going on? We were terrified. So anyway, seeing people die, I'd always known that there was evil in this world, but to witness it firsthand and to see people jumping because they had nowhere else to go to get out, it was terrifying. And I just remember getting on the elevator, and it was a moment that I talk about in my book a couple times, and I just remember thinking, if I die right now, am I prepared to meet my maker? Because I believe that after I die, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to face God, and that I'm going to account for everything that I did. Was I a good person? Did I do everything that I could? And then I also had this feeling, if I get out of here, I am going to stand as a witness of this, and I'm a very strong Christian. I am a believer in God, and I'm like, if I get out of this, one day I'm going to stand as a witness for truth, and I'm going to stand as a witness for God, and I'm going to do something to help others. And all these people were helping us, like NYPD, the firefighters. I mean, if it was me, my own, even though it was so horrific to look at, it was like mesmerizing, like you couldn't not look at it. And I would have just been standing at the base of the World Trade Center just staring, but they kept saying, get away from the buildings. And they're screaming, and some people are crying, and some people are silent, and people have blood on. I mean, it was horrifying. And I just remember thinking, one day, I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna serve others, and I'm gonna stand as a witness for truth, and I'm gonna serve my country. And I didn't know what that meant. So fast forward, I live my life, you know, I end up staying at Merrill Lynch, my boss ends up retiring when Stan O'Neill became the CEO, and then, you know, I go work in private wealth management, working with ultra high net worth clients in New York, and again, remember, I was just like, this girl from Texas, like I had no intention of having a career. I was gonna get married and have kids, but like that wasn't happening, so this was like my plan B. So I just keep going through doors that are opening, and like, people are like, how did you get there? I swear, the less you care about something in your life, the more it happens. So, I was very blessed, and then I went and I worked for Bank of America Securities. I was working in prime brokerage. I had all my brokerage licenses, blah, blah, blah. And then I was a marathon runner, and I was just sick of the weather in New York. And I'm like, you know what, I'm over it. Like, I trained for the Boston Marathon one year. I didn't end up getting to run it because I got so sick, because it was so cold, and I just remember being sick of running on ice, and they've had a rough winter this year. But anyway, so I ended up going and working for a hedge fund in LA. I don't feel fulfillment there. It was a great company, allegedly, but I didn't think it was so great. And I just remember thinking, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, there's something else, that promise I made on that elevator, like, I need to go back and serve. And so I did. I ended up leaving the hedge fund, and I just wasn't sure what that would look like. And then a friend of mine that I worked with in New York on Wall Street, he's like, look, you should apply to the FBI. And I was like, what? The FBI? Like, and he's like, well, that's a good way to serve your country. Like, I knew I wasn't going to go into the military or anything like that. So I did. I applied, and I go through the whole process in my book because I think it's something that people don't really speak about. The whole process is very unique. It's changed. I'll tell you, it's changed since I applied. Now it became very DEI based, very non-qualified individuals, I believe, were getting into the FBI. That's one of the reasons why I left, because it changed so drastically. But when I applied, it was like a big deal. Like, you had to really be qualified to get in there. So I ended up getting through the process. I get into the FBI, I go to Quantico. I have a whole chapter about Quantico. It was pure hell. I hated every moment of it. I almost didn't make it out of there because of firearms. And I just remember thinking, wow, I gave up my Wall Street career, I'm here at Quantico, and now I'm gonna fail firearms. Like, why did I do this? Like, this is so ridiculous. Like, and then I remember being assigned Miami. So I got my assignment, you don't pick where you're going, they tell you, and I remember being like, Miami, like, I'd only been here one time. It was for the Mavericks Heat finals, and I loved the beach and stuff, but the vibe, I said, oh no, like, that is not for me. Like, I just didn't like it, I'll be honest. I live here now and I love it, but I really did not like it. I felt like it was just fraud and fake, and I just wasn't into it. And in the meantime, I had a relationship with a guy out in California, so I was like, oh, that's gonna be over, because he was an anesthesiologist out in California. I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work. So again, I was still hoping for that life that I wasn't having. But I was like, well, God's putting me through these experiences, so I'm going to go through the doors and keep going. So I did. I made it through Quantico. You can read all about it. And I was assigned Miami. I get to Miami, and I'm like, okay, I'm here. Let's make the best of this. I started working white-collar crime, and because that was my background, so that was a natural fit.
What was the time frame?
This was in 2010. Yeah. So I'm working white-collar crime. I do that for 4 years, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the legal process and how we open cases, and it was a really good experience. I worked with amazing people. So I started noticing that there were such cool people in the FBI. I worked with awesome people on Wall Street. I have to say, Win Smith is still one of my very closest friends. He's a huge mentor to me. He was at my book launch event in New York. Like, I'm very close to him, and a lot of people I worked with on Wall Street, I stayed very close to them. They were good people. But the FBI, it was just a very patriotic experience. Like, these are former military, law enforcement, attorneys, accountants, like just such a wide variety of people, and they were all very smart and very nice, and they were honest, and I really enjoyed it. So those are the people that I refer to as FBI 1, because I'm going to talk to you, there really are 2 FBIs. So I get to the FBI, and I'm working with FBI 1, which are the good people. And it was phenomenal, things are going great. And then I switched over to violent crime, and that's when things really started to ratchet up quite a bit. White collar, I was working pretty normal agent hours. Violent crime, my life was no longer violent. Like, I was basically with the violent criminals, and I was working nonstop. No more marathons, no more training, no more anything, because I didn't have time for that. And I certainly didn't have time for a social life, dating. Like, that was going to be impossible because you're just always working. But I was on the #1 ranked violent crime fugitive task force in the United States, which was a big deal. And I was the only female on that squad. And so it wasn't because I was a female that I was proud, it was because they didn't look at me like some token female, because I wasn't a token female. Like, you've got to be able to hold your weight, and if you can't hold your weight, you've got to go. Like, they can't have these, like, Secret Service agents, like what happened to President Trump with those females. They were terrible. That was terrible. That can't happen. People's lives are on the line, and so we were doing incredible work. We're literally banging down doors, going in, getting violent offenders. It was incredible. So that started around 2015 into 2014, and then it was July 5th of 2016 that I first noticed FBI 2, which is the bad FBI, the political, socially weaponized FBI. And does anyone know what happened on July 5th of 2016? Who could take a guess what might have, like,
President Trump.
no. Well, it had to do with President Trump, but that's not what happened on July 5th, specifically.
Something to do with the Obama administration at the time?
It had to do with James Comey. So James Comey came forward to the American people on July 5th of 2016 and had that big press conference about Hillary Clinton, which is Operation Mid-Year Exam, and I talk about it in my book. And he said that no reasonable prosecutor would charge Hillary Clinton. And all of us, again, I'm working violent crime in Miami, so like, what is he talking about? Like, why not? Like, if she broke the law, like, why would they not charge her? And all of me and the guys on my violent crime squad, even though we didn't work on that, we were in Miami, we're like, what is he talking about? Like, that is not true. Like, we are political. And that was the defining moment that I knew FBI 2 was in full force. And so FBI 2 is the politically, socially weaponized part of the FBI. They use their law enforcement power to push their own political and social agendas. They have no respect for the laws. They will do whatever they have to do to push what they want and to put people out. And I ignored it as much as I could, because I'm like, look, that's up in DC, that doesn't pertain to me. Like, we're doing real work. Like, I'm working with like child predators and putting away people that are raping children. Like, I don't have time for this stupid stuff. And so we just try to focus on the good work we're doing in Miami and my squad, and as we call it, running and gunning. And as the time progressed, I detail it in my book, I started seeing FBI 2 more and more and more, and it was getting to the point where I couldn't really turn a blind eye to it anymore because it was just so overwhelming. And it was in the media, and everywhere you turned, it was just like, oh. And for me, like, for example, yesterday is the 8-year anniversary of the Parkland school shooting, which I had to work, and it's horrifying. This is why I don't like to talk about stuff like this, because it's really sad. But I had to tell all these families that their children were dead and they were never coming home. It was terrible. Terrible. It was actually Pam Bondi, she was the Attorney General for Florida at the time, and it really was a local case, but FBI was there to help, and I will never forget when she turned and she looked at me. And everyone else from the FBI was gone, because it really wasn't supposed to be our investigation, but we ended up doing the bulk of the work. And I just remember being at that hotel while all the families were, and I talk about it in detail in my book, and she's like, I want you to be the one to do this. I never met her before, I didn't know her, and I'd seen her on TV, but I did not know her. And I'm thinking, why is she asking me to do this? Like, I cannot do this. Like, I cannot do this. Like, this is the limit, I am not doing this. But I couldn't really tell her no. And I'm a woman of faith, and it's intertwined throughout my entire book. You cannot know who I am without knowing that God has always been there for me. And that was a moment that I literally had to say a silent prayer, and I'm like, please just help me get through this. And I did. And to this day, I still keep in touch with those families. The Pettys, the Hoyers, the Schachters. I know all of their children, not because I ever met them, but because I've taken the time to really understand their little treasures that aren't with them anymore. I still keep in touch with the officers that I was with. When you do death notifications, you do it with another law enforcement officer. I actually met Kevin, the guy that I had to do it with. We worked the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting together. And so I'm very familiar with violence, I'm very familiar with darkness, and there's a very big battle between light and dark going on in this world. And I always wanted to be on the side of the light. And so, what really frustrated me, and this is just one example, so FBI 1's like stepping it up to try to help these families and do the right thing. And then the next day we find out that the FBI had a tip. And they knew about the shooter. And I detail it in my book, I'm not gonna go through it right now. But it really irritated me because they dropped the ball on this tip. And I was the one that had to go in and tell these families, I'm doing the cleanup from their mistake. And I'm not saying it was just the FBI that made a mistake, but they ended up settling a lawsuit. The Department of Justice settled with the families for like $140 million. But you can never ever replace your child with any sum of money. That is totally not even possible. And so I remember learning about the tip the next day, because they wanted us to know before it came out to the public. And that tip came through the call center, the same one that they're calling in for Nancy Guthrie. And the person taking the tip never documented it. And so a woman called January 5th, the shooting was February 14th, and she gave a full detail of what she thought. She's like, I think this guy's gonna be a school shooter. He said he's gonna be a school shooter. And that wasn't the only tip the FBI got. They had gotten another tip. And so that really, the sense of guilt that I felt, because the next day when they tell us about it, I'm like, that had nothing to do with me. But all those families, I was the only one from the FBI. I have my FBI raid jacket on. In their minds, they're gonna be like, that woman that told us that our child is dead, it's her fault that they're not with us anymore. And I knew it wasn't my fault, but you can't really, I was angry. I was angry and I had a sense of guilt. And then it really irritated me because the week before the shooting, Christopher Wray, who was then the director, was in Miami, in FBI Miami's what we call AOR, Area of Responsibility, and they rarely come, the director rarely comes, and he came for a diversity event. So it really irritated me that, again, FBI 2, diversity, look, I don't care what the color of your skin or your race or your gender or religion, I couldn't care less. If you're qualified, you should have the job. If you're not qualified, you should not have the job. It's that simple to me. And it really irritated me that that was his top priority. And I remember thinking, if he was focused more on training his current employees to know how to do their jobs properly, we could have saved 17 lives. And I was so furious because DEI started to it was front and center at the Bureau. It was front and center because I was a woman, I was required to go to the recruiting event, and I'm like, I don't need to go because I'm a woman. This is so stupid. Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, I don't believe in hiring women just because they're a woman. Like, that's wrong. Like, I'm not a token female, and I talk about it in the book. There's a phase 2 testing, and it's on a panel. You sit on a panel for an hour, and you have to answer 13 questions. and it's recorded and it's part of the interview process. And there's 3 people on the panel, 3 agents, and you go in and they ask you 13 questions. You have 1 hour to answer them. They record the answers, and they score you. One of my phase 2 assessors told me out of 20 years that he'd been doing it, he could count on one hand how many people got a perfect score, and I was one of the perfect scores that he got, that he had given, and that was given in his time doing it. So it made me feel reassured, like I know I'm not here because I'm a female, I'm here because I've been working since I was 15 years old, and I have incredible work experience, and I've run marathons, and like the stuff that the FBI looks at, physical fitness, all of these different factors, your honesty, your integrity. So it really irritated me that Christopher Wray, his top priority was no longer the quality of the work that was being done at the FBI, it was the diversity of the people doing it. And again, I'm fine with this diversity as far as work experience, but diversity as far as just bringing people in, like you could only go to the event that he was at if you were a minority. And I'm like, that's crazy to me. And so actually it was reverse discrimination at the FBI, but anyway, so that really crushed me. And I remember telling some of those Parkland families, I'm like, you should ask where Christopher Wray was the week before the shooting happened. Because he was just down the street from Parkland. Like, he was just in Fort Lauderdale. The event was at a hotel in Fort Lauderdale. And that was FBI 2 in full display. So again, FBI 2 was not just the political and social weaponization like the Jim Comey's, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. It was also the people that were pushing social justice warrior movements, 19 diversity clubs. How do you have time for that? Until you've solved every single case that the FBI has, there's just really no place for that at the FBI. So it kind of, in my opinion, it was like multiple prongs going into this FBI 2. So again, I just kind of, I just keep pushing through. And then there were just a series of other things happening, and then for me, another awful tragedy. My best friend in the FBI was shot and killed in the line of duty. And I talk about it on Fox as much as I possibly can. I say her name as much as I can on Fox News. They always say that, say no name for that Breonna Taylor or whatever. No, why don't you say the names of the people that really were doing real work and are real heroes? So my best friend, Special Agent Laura Schwarzenberger, shot and killed in the line of duty February 2nd, just last week. It was a 5-year mark. And it really, I detail who she was as an agent. She had the highest level of integrity of anyone I've ever worked with. She was on the Violent Crimes Against Children squad. They were executing a warrant for a child predator, child porn guy. We all know that those are the most dangerous and the most violent because when they get caught, they're gonna go away forever, and they know that, and so they have nothing to lose. So 2 agents were killed, 3 others were shot and survived, and we hadn't had an adversarial death in the FBI in 14 years. So it was a big deal. And she was like my confidant. She's the one that I would vent to about FBI 2. And then she was gone. And we made a vow to each other the day before she was killed. And the days leading up to her death. That we would never, this is when January 6th was like in full force. Because Biden had just come in. And I'm like, Laura, if we're in a shooting, we're going to jail. Like this is after George Floyd. And I was like, they're not gonna have our backs. We can't defend ourselves. Like we are in trouble. And so yeah, she was killed just a couple weeks into President Biden being the president. And the way that the FBI handled it was infuriating to me because they didn't even pay for her funeral. They went to a private donor and said they did not have the money to pay for these agents' funerals. But yet you have millions and millions of dollars to spend on these diversity initiatives. You have millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on January 6th investigations, but you do not have money to pay for my friend's funeral? Like I wanted no part of this place. I was feeling pissed. Like I was angry. And the part that really made me upset too is January 6th, it just occurred the month before, and the FBI was sending our full SWAT teams nationwide for January 6th misdemeanors, for people that did nothing. Like the FBI, we're not even in the business of charging misdemeanors. We don't have time for misdemeanors. And people that really did virtually nothing were getting the full SWAT team on their operations to politically scare and intimidate them. And even Laura said it the day before she was killed and 2 days before she was killed. But the morning of her operation for a violent child offender, no SWAT. No SWAT for Laura. But they had no problem sending SWAT for all this stupid stuff. And I was just like, I just can't be a part of this. Like, I've ignored FBI 2 for so long, all the politics, all the Operation Crossfire Hurricane, all the Operation Mid-Year Exam, all of the diversity stuff, all of this, the Parkland failure, the Larry Nassar gymnastics failure. I mean, there were failures going on all over the agency, but at the same time, there were good, honest people doing good work, and I'm like, this is not right. But when they wouldn't even tell us what happened, my friend, I was like, forget it. Like, I asked my boss, I'm like, when are we gonna get a full briefing on what happened February 2nd? Oh, well, you know, we're not prepared to hear about that. Oh, really? Okay, I disagree with you until we know what happened. How are we supposed to learn lessons so it doesn't ever happen again? And there was just, it just seemed like they were shoving it under the rug, like it was just, like it never happened, and I just thought that was highly disrespectful, and I was like, I can't be a part of this. And I did, I made a vow to my friend, I made a vow on the elevator that I would serve my country one day. I did, I came to the FBI, I served with honor, and I worked my tail off. But I just knew, I was like, this is not where you're supposed to be. You're done. And I did, I tried to leave the FBI, I went and told them. The year after my friend, so my friend was killed February 2nd, I went in the following January 1st. So almost a year after I went in, I was like, look, I don't think this is, I'm done. Well, the FBI, they like hold this pension over people's heads, and like they dangle this pensions, like they know that so many people were frustrated. So many people were angry and frustrated with what was happening at the agency, but no one's gonna leave because they gotta get that pension. And I don't blame them because you work hard for that pension, but I didn't come for the pension, and I certainly wasn't gonna stay for the pension. And so I just always trusted God. I'm like, there's a reason that of all the agents, that I happen to be best friends with her, and I'm gonna stand up for her. And so I went in the first time, they said, we think you're making an emotional decision, you know, we hope you reconsider, and I was like, okay, whatever. And so I waited, you know, to see if the FBI would shape up, and it actually got way worse, way worse. So 2 years into the Biden administration, I was just like, this is ridiculous. And I was in FBI Miami when the raid at Mar-a-Lago happened. The end of my book, the last chapter, is just all FBI 2. FBI 2, like, boom, 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 boom. Like, there were so many things that were going off the rails. Like, even when I wrote the chapter, it was just like this big run-on, because it was like this. So we kind of like put a table of contents within the last chapter of the book to like keep it organized of basically all the things that were going really, really wrong. And so I did, I went back to him and I said, look, I'm done. Not only did y'all not get better, you actually got worse. And Christopher Wright continues to act like everything's great at this agency, and until you can acknowledge that there's problems, there's no chance of it being fixed. And they're like, no, please don't leave, like, where do you want to go? We'll do whatever you need to do. Like, you're one of our best agents, like, the best agent in Miami. I'm like, look, people like me, we're not gonna stick around. Like, we're not gonna tolerate this. And so I did, I just quietly left. I didn't have a big going away. I didn't even tell anyone, like squad mates of mine didn't even know, because I was like, I don't want, because people at the FBI did gossip, and I was just like, that's not my personality, I just want out of here. My friend didn't get to say bye to people, I'm not gonna say bye to people either. And people that knew me well, I had their personal cell phone numbers, and I'm still in touch with them. But if I didn't know you well, it's none of your business what I'm doing. So I did, I walked away, and I left, and I can tell you, I have never regretted it. I ended up having the opportunity through, I knew Maria Bartiromo from Wall Street from way back in the day when I worked with Lynn Smith. And so Maria introduced me to Fox News, and Fox was like, yeah, we'd love to hear what, you know, not only do you understand the politics of the FBI, you've worked some of the biggest cases in the United States. And so I've been very blessed and lucky. And so I went to Fox, and then I was able to get an awesome book deal with HarperCollins and a conservative imprint. And here we are. So that's a little bit about my story, but there really are amazing people at the FBI and FBI 1, like my friend Laura and like others, who, I mean, I was not corrupt. I was not politically and socially weaponized. I was doing the right thing, and there are a lot of people that have left. You don't know about them, but there are a lot of people who walked away from their pensions because they were just so disgusted. But then, you know, there's other people that are still holding the line, trying to do the right thing. The question I get asked all the time, so I'll just ask it now, or answer it. I do think that this new administration is like no nonsense. They've gotten rid of a lot of people, but it's the rot is deep, like it's deep, and so it's hard to know who can you trust and who you not trust. And so I'm a good mouthpiece for them because I have nothing, you know, I'm not involved, so I'll tell them straight up like what's going on. So. Yeah, I think they're working really hard to try to clean it up, but it's going to take a long time to do. But they're making good headway, I think. So that's a little bit about my story, and I hope y'all enjoy my book.
Yeah, I think if you question?
Okay,
Yes. Okay, Robert, you had a question?
Yeah.
I'll try.
Do you think the FBI could have done a lot more in investigating Jeffrey Epstein?
No, I don't. Because back in 2006, before I was even there, because I know the squad that did the investigation, and they did a full investigation, and they were ready to charge it, and it was the U.S. Attorney's Office that declined prosecution and sent it to the state. That's not the FBI's problem. So I talk about it a lot in my book. The FBI gathers evidence, and then the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecutes. So you can have this amazing case, and I did have amazing cases that at times were not prosecuted, because I couldn't get a prosecutor that would charge it. Ultimately, I know for a fact I wasn't at the Bureau, because I don't know if people know this Epstein thing dates back over 20 years.
Yeah, 2002.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, this is old, like it was 2006 that they were
Who was
looking to charge it.
president then, first?
Obama.
Okay.
2002, it goes back to like 2002.
Yeah, I don't know, I just know that it was around 2006 that they were gonna charge him federally, and it was accosted there in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Florida that declined prosecution. Well, he basically gave them, I don't know exactly the legal, what happened, but they ended up charging it, they were gonna charge it in the state.
Wait, why was it state of Florida?
Because he was down here, a lot of the recruiting happened down here.
One more person.
I wasn't here, I can't speak on behalf of the Bureau, I've never seen the case file, I'm not gonna pretend that I have, I just know agents that worked on it, and they were
Yeah, it
extremely
was back
frustrated.
here in
But the
Miami.
FBI can only do so much, it's up to the U.S. Attorney's Office to charge.
Yeah, it was filed here in Miami,
Yeah,
and what happened is, you know, our resident here, Alan Dorsey, was one of his attorney at that time, and I think that they worked out some kind of deal. Yeah, they worked out some kind of deal where he had to work out of his house or something like that in Palm Beach,
yeah.
and I can't remember.
It involves state and federal charges, but yeah,
Exactly.
you can
Yeah.
research all that, but I'm just telling you flat out that, I know people that were very frustrated, and that's something that does, I mean, I worked a homicide case that never got charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I was like, I worked on it for years, and it never got charged. So, people think it's just FBI, no, it's actually, FBI has their problems, but DOJ also has that DOJ 1 and DOJ 2. I knew who the good prosecutors were, but that was a very high level decision, that was up at the top. So that's all public information. It was accosted, he used to be the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of Florida years ago, but ended up giving him a deal. And then he got charged in the Southern District of New York, obviously.
How do you think Cash Patel is doing?
Like I was saying, I think Cash is working really hard. I do know that. It is nonstop. Like this, you think that, I think everyone gets in there and they're like, whoa, this is way worse than I thought it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just being honest. But FBI 1, the thing that I told,
How many
I talked to
employees
Cash,
are FBI?
about 12,000.
Okay.
No. Actually, the whole FBI, sorry, there are about 12,000 agents. The support staff, I think they should streamline it drastically. I'd say probably 30,000, like more support staff than agents for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. But no, I think that I think Cash is really, he's working hard. That's all I know. Like it's like constant. Some people love him, some people hate him. There are agents that hate him because they're like, wait, you're getting rid of all of these people. I think that there was a reason that President Trump brought in somebody that wasn't attached emotionally to anyone, because agents always want another agent. I told him this, I'm like, you know what, we wanted an agent. Like we wanted an agent. You just listen more to someone who's been through what you've been through, who's like done an operation, had a gun put in their face, who's been through Quantico. There's an amount of credibility that comes with someone who's actually done the job before. But I can also see that emotional attachment can make it really difficult to really get the job done, because those are your friends, those are your buddies. When you're someone from the outside, you're like, you know, I think he's very fair. But I have been impressed by how much he has done, because no one's ever done that. Like no one ever goes in and actually gets rid of the seventh floor. That's never happened. Like Christopher Wray came in after Comey, and we're like, oh gosh. Like the first one, Comey came in after Mueller, because I worked under Mueller, Comey, Wray. And I remember Comey came in at first, and we actually thought he was cool. We're like, oh man, he's gonna be great. Like he's awesome. And then we're like, oh my gosh, this guy is like a snake. Like we do not. This guy's horrible. Then Ray comes in. So Comey was like, yapping at the mouth constantly, like love to be in the front of everybody and all that.
You like attention.
Ray was the opposite though. He was like MIA, like we're like, does he even work here? Like we don't even know what he does, and he just kind of sat on the 7th floor in the ivory tower. I think Cash is like a good balance of like, you've got to be out talking to the agents, you've got to try to understand what they're going through and support them, but you've also got to like hold the organization together. So I think he's working really hard. I don't envy him. But yeah, I think he's definitely trying.
Nicole, I don't know if you know, but you know, I went to the rally on January 6th.
To where?
To the rally on January 6th.
Oh, okay. Did they come
The
get you?
rally.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
You're still
I
here.
mean, you know, I waited for that phone call from the FBI, but they never called me.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have called you. They probably would have just shown up at your house.
But you know, and I'm so glad that I did it, because if I hadn't gone and be there, I could totally believe all the lies that were told constantly, right? Day and night, lies about this rally, okay? So I'm very happy that I did, because I was there. So
Yeah.
I know when they're lying, I know when they're lying.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, it's just, and that the American people didn't raise that, there should have been like a revolution, like going after all of these people. Like the worst they did was a misdemeanor.
Right.
And I read all of the charges of all the people that they charged, okay? There was like over 1,200 cases.
Oh, it was the
It was
biggest,
like
I talked
1,200
about it on Fox
cases.
a lot.
Okay,
It was
like
the biggest
1,200
case in
cases
DOJ
of
history, like bigger
people-
than 9/11.
Exactly, people like the worst they did was, and they said they broke into the Capitol, but most of them were invited in.
Yeah, I mean, there
Okay,
were things
so it
that
was
were
not
wrong.
even
There
a
were people breaking
misdemeanor.
windows, that's inappropriate, there's no place for that, there's no place for ever, that is never appropriate, but that was not the vast majority.
So anyway, so
It
I
was
was
a
there,
very
and,
small
and,
number.
and I left, you know, the rally like at 2 o'clock, because I'd been up early in the morning, and I hadn't had anything to eat, and my back was hurting, so I started to walk back to my hotel, because the entire town, the mayor had closed it. There was no Uber, no taxi, nothing, everything was by foot, or you couldn't get anywhere, right? So and finally made it back to my hotel like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And everybody was looking for me, my daughter, my secretary, everybody was looking for me, right, because they're her. And so then I picked up my secretary, and she said, Inez, where are you? How you doing? Like, you know, and I had no idea that these things was going on the TV, because I've been outside, and I said, what's going on? I said, you don't know? Aren't you there? Yes, I'm here. You know, so I said,
Yeah.
so she said, turn on the TV. And I said, well, I don't know how to turn on the TV. I'm in a hotel, I don't know how to turn on the TV. So she sends me some screenshot from the TV, what she's watching on TV, okay? So she sent me some screenshot. The minute I saw the screenshot, I said to her, one word, this is tactical deception.
Wow. Well, they all got pardoned, so.
No,
After the
but
FBI spent
also,
millions of dollars and ruined it.
no, but also,
Thousands of
but
lives.
also, I honestly believe that some of the people who were causing the problem were paid instigators of the opposition,
Well,
dressed
I
as
mean,
Trump
we know that they
supporter.
are paid
Tactical
instigators
deception,
everywhere.
tactical deception,
Yeah,
okay?
You see what they're doing, guys.
Okay.
Going back to the Epstein thing real fast
Yeah.
too. There is nothing, look, I know Pam Bondi. There is nothing more that she would rather see than to have people in handcuffs who have hurt children.
Right.
That is what she's about. So, trust me, when people are like, well, Pam Bondi does, Pam Bondi would have such fulfillment in bringing justice with all of the evidence that she could against those that have committed crimes, no matter what the crime is, because that's who she is. And so when people are like, well, you know, let me just rest assured, there's one thing that's all in the media and on social media that gets click, 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 click. I mean, people put stuff out there just to get clicks. That's the other thing I learned. Rest assured that if there was chargeable offenses that they had the evidence for, that they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt in the court of law that they were charged. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, because I have not seen the case file. I'm not gonna say that I have, I don't know. But I think a lot of the stuff out there is almost clickbait. Like, I read some of this stuff and I'm like, these people don't know the history. Like, I would refer them back to the original case and how it even started. And I worked human trafficking cases. I worked crimes against children. My friend was killed by a child predator. Like, this is something that, if anyone believes in stopping this, it's us, you know? Like, I've seen what can happen and ruin people's lives. I don't want anyone to be a victim of that. It's horrifying. But I also know how difficult some cases can be to charge. And if you don't have the evidence that the prosecutor thinks that you have to charge it, it is what it is. But that's what made me sick, is that, like, they would gladly charge President Trump, they would gladly charge misdemeanors for January 6th, but like when it came to the other stuff, it's like, okay. But again, that was before my time at FBI or DOJ, so I'm not really in a position to speak about it.
So Alan Dershowitz, who's spoken, was his attorney, and says that he's very intimate in what's in the files, and also familiar with a lot of the people that we now know were his conspirators. Said that there's very little, if any, evidence of any of them did anything that's criminal or could be prosecuted.
That's my point.
Exactly.
Because there's one thing, those cases are hard to charge, that's all I'm gonna say. They're difficult to charge. So it goes back exactly to what I'm saying. I don't even know what I know who he is, but again, I'm not an Epstein, I didn't work the case, so I've got so many other, I've worked all these others. If they had the evidence that they could charge someone beyond a reasonable doubt, they would. And I hope, look, if they get in there and they're like, hey, you know what, we think there's something here that we can charge, I really feel strongly that they would. But I can tell you that Pam Bondi, of all people, she wants to see bad people behind bars. I know that for a fact.
So, there is evidence that the FBI played a role in January 6th. And there's some conspiracy theories that they actually were actively involved in breaching the Capitol. What is your understanding?
I have no knowledge, I have no direct knowledge of that, so I'm not in a position to comment.
So,
Yeah.
are you in a position to
Aware.
comment what the
Aware.
role of the FBI was during January 6th?
I have heard, again, that was not my case for investigation, so I'm not one of those people who just says like what people want. It's just not who I am unless I've seen it myself. I know that there were people there that had been confidential human sources, and that's not abnormal. So let's say that you're a source for the FBI. I could be a source for the FBI, but I'm not acting at the instruction of the FBI. So there's always an important distinction to make. Like, let's say that, and I'm not saying this is what happened, I'm just saying as an example. Let's say that there were 20, we call them CHSs. Let's say that there were 20 CHSs at the Capitol that morning. I would want to know, were they there at the instruction of the FBI, or were they there and happened to be a confidential human source, but were not actually carrying out duties on behalf of that they were instructed to do. And we're very careful about our sources. But yeah, there have been congressional hearings about it, and you know, people want answers, and they deserve answers.
He was asked, one of the congressional, Chris Wray, he was asked,
Yeah.
how many undercover FBI agents were in January 6th? And he wouldn't. But if you want to know, if you want to
Okay,
read
so let
about
me
it,
tell you too,
her name is
you're
Judy
mixing up
Kelly.
words too.
Yeah, Judy
So if
Kelly.
a confidential human source is not an undercover agent, that's different too. So a confidential human source is a non-FBI employee, they don't work for the FBI, they're like, any of y'all can be the CHS for the FBI. Myself as an agent would not be a confidential human source because I'm an agent. So what she's saying
Apparently,
is
there were
agents-
FBI agents that
Yeah.
have been assigned to
Yeah.
be there
So that would
undercover.
be different than a
Undercover,
confidential human source.
and what I heard from good sources is there were over 100 FBI agents.
So again, I can't,
Right.
I'm not gonna speak to it
Right.
because it would be speaking out of turn, but like, it wouldn't shock me if there were FBI agents there.
Correct.
I used to be a special event coordinator for the FBI. I went to tons of events, and if there was a big group of people that were gonna be somewhere, the FBI is typically going to be there to make sure that there's not a terrorist attack, or this or that, or blah, blah, blah. Like the Super Bowl, I mean, that is swarming with FBI agents. Any major event or a group of people, but those are fair questions and people deserve to have answers. All I know is that the FBI and DOJ in particular, Merrick Garland, treated January 6th as if it was the biggest thing that ever happened in our country. And I found that highly offensive as someone who was an actual witness to 9/11. I'm like, for you to say that it was worse than 9/11 is truly insulting to the victims. Like, that is disgusting. But the number of resources that they put on it, and my friend and Laura, you'll read in my book, like, we made a vow, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that case, not just because of what it is,
Political
but
witch.
because it's abusing your law enforcement power, and why would we do that for this, but not for this? And so it was so obvious, they were picking and choosing, like, Hillary Clinton, we're gonna turn a blind eye. President Trump, we're going full force. Okay, BLM in the summer of 2020, we're gonna turn a blind eye. January 6th, we're going full force. And it was like right down the line. It was just like,
Political.
wait, it was so obvious. Like
Which
everything that involved Republicans, conservatives, they got the full force of the federal government. But if you were on the liberal, progressive, or Democrat side, you gotta pass. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. That's not equal enforcement of the law. And that's wrong. And that's why I just did not agree with that.
Robert, there's a book, Julie Kelly. Is the best book on January 6th. Julie Kelly, you can buy her on Amazon.
Anyway, okay, sorry I can't answer all the questions, but I'm not like a BSer. I'm not gonna like talk out of turn. If that's what I maintain is my integrity. If I don't know the answer, I'm not gonna just.
Irene has a question, yeah.
Yeah, it's just another subject. Regarding Charlie Kirk, there's a lot of, I know that
Yes.
I'll use the word
Conspiracy.
conspiracy theories out there. I happen to believe that conspiracy theories do have some type of basis, because there are questions that come from it. And my question to you is, what are your thoughts on the lone shooter, the young man that's in custody? Do you think that the FBI has done, Tyler Robinson, do you think the FBI has done so far a good job? Was it too swift to just close and say that's the person? Are they doing things behind the scenes that we don't know about?
Again, I wasn't at the FBI when
Yeah,
I
just
haven't
in
seen the
general.
case file. I do believe he's a lone offender. I don't call them lone wolves, that's like giving them too much credit. A lone offender. I actually just did a special for Sean Hannity for Fox Nation Friday, and Tyler Robinson's one of the people that we talk about, so when it comes out, you'll see me. We went over 4 shooters.
And I'm asking specifically because on the internet.
Like, what do you think? Like, to me, again, when you work investigations, we don't listen to the media, we don't listen to conspiracy
Yeah.
theories. All we do is we
You're
follow the
obviously-
evidence, we follow the facts. I can tell you for a fact that case, there is not a clear motive. A lot of times there's not a clear motive in these shootings. So our behavioral analysis unit will go in, they'll do like a full scrub on everything about the person, all of their history, all their text messages, their chats, their online gaming, everything.
The actual weapon, the reason I'm asking is, there's a lot of debate on the weapon used and the wound that, the fatal wound that he had. And just so many people, now with the internet, right, there's a lot
So
of
what are
opinions
they
out
saying?
there.
I'm just curious what they're saying.
That bullet, 30-06, you're the expert, I'm not. But they're saying that bullet would have blown his head off,
So are they saying he wasn't?
So
what are they
basically,
saying?
he still had his head attached to his body.
So what are they saying? That wasn't the gun?
Basically that wasn't a
Okay.
gun, that there was I have no idea.
My biggest piece of recommendation, and this is why it's tricky, because here I am saying, oh, the FBI, they're corrupt and you can't trust them. But I'm telling you that when it comes down to FBI 1, they can be trusted, they do real investigations, and they're not trying to like.
So the
cover
FBI
something
one
up.
took the place of FBI 2?
No, I mean, I'm just saying there are good.
The
I'm
FBI
saying, what would the FBI have to gain in that situation? Think about it from this perspective. I guess I don't understand, because when I work cases, I can't even imagine getting to the point where there's a conspiracy, because all I would do, it's not all I would do, I would work my tail off. But you get the evidence, you have it coming in, you can serve federal grand jury subpoenas, you get all the evidence. And again, we interview people, that's obviously a form of evidence that we bring in, is interviews, but you have to corroborate what someone says with actual hard evidence, right? So I guess my question to you, and like search warrants, subpoenas, going before the grand jury, bringing people in before the grand jury, bank records, phone records, cellular analysis, tracking where his phone was pinging, like that stuff doesn't lie. You cannot lie on that. Like you can't cover that up. So a lot of the technological advances that we have, there's no way to get around the fact that this is what happened and this is what they did. So I guess for me, because it's the same thing with Thomas Crooks, who, you know, attempted to kill President Trump, or then nominee President Trump. You know, there's all these different theories. So with the Charlie Kirk one, he's going to trial. He is alive. He is going to trial. I personally think it's going to be a slam dunk case.
Right.
I don't think there's really much wiggle room for this guy. So are you thinking that there was another person that was there that was involved?
There's just so much debate about the weapon. That to me made me
Okay.
think twice.
Gotcha.
Just the wound.
Yeah, no, I understand it. And I mean, and that's a fair question. I mean, I can understand if someone's a gun expert, they think that there's no way that that could have happened. But all I can say is that they've done an exhaustive investigation, and that is being worked by the locals. That's actually a local case. That's actually not being led by the FBI. So they work hand in hand, but that's actually being worked on the state level as well, just so you know.
I have, because.
Yeah, and I don't have a ton of time.
Yeah, because of the Parkland case, and you were involved in it, and I remember when that happened. I think we all remember, you know, we were here, and I remember a friend of mine who used to do a lot of research. She called me one day and she said, Inez, I know why this happened, but you know, like it's not coming out because you know people don't want to get killed, you know, because if you have something against, you know, the people in power, and you heard about, and I think Rush Limbaugh talked about in one of his shows, it was called the Promise Program in Broward County.
Yeah.
You ever heard of that?
Yeah, I think it was by Obama.
Correct, by Obama, and
Yeah,
basically,
like
that
basically
it
he
was
should have been put away a while ago.
exactly, he was
It wasn't,
incentivized.
it wasn't politically correct.
And basically, my friend said, what he's doing is that he incentivized
Yeah.
for high school, basically, not to report all of this
Yeah. They
delinquency.
didn't report
They
things
didn't
because
report
they wanted to
because
protect him
they-
from being,
And they wanted to collect the
Misjudged.
money also because Obama was giving them $100,000 if they lower their delinquency rate, right?
Yeah.
So she says, honestly, I mean,
That
they
is a
are
fact.
to blame, they are
that's
to
in the
blame for what
Rogers
happened.
Douglas report, that is a fact. I know that because Ryan Petty, who's the father, who was on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission. So there were a lot of problems with the Parkland school shooter, and when it happened, no one was shocked, even the students. Everyone immediately knew it's gotta be him. Like, it's gotta be him. And so, unfortunately, it was a failure on multiple levels by the school board, by Broward County Sheriff's Office, by the FBI. I mean, there were multiple times when this person should have been stopped. So sometimes it comes out of left field because we can't stop everybody.
Correct,
But when it's someone that is on the radar
correct.
that you knew about, that's the part that makes me sick. Because that is very different
Exactly.
than some lone offender who, look, people snap all the time. I'm sorry to say it. Like, we live in a world where people snap and they lash out in violence. And it's happening so frequently. When Parkland happened, it was like, whoa, that's a big deal. There's a school shooting. Now that I'm on Fox, there's a school shooting every week. And I'm just like, how is this even possible? I mean, sometimes they're not as, you know, many fatalities, but I don't care. Like, there should never be a school shooting, ever.
What do you think about custody quickly, like what's going on with that?
Oh, gosh. Again, I'm not there. I think she's dead.
Yeah,
I think it's probably a family member.
I think so. Or someone, you know,
That's just my own opinion. I haven't seen anything that says that. But just the behavioral analysis perspective, maybe not a family member that carried out the act, but maybe was facilitated or orchestrated by someone close to her. It was not a stranger and it was not a burglary, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
most times it's not, it's like.
Yeah, it's not some illegal immigrant from across the border. No, this is highly orchestrated, in my opinion. Again, I could be, I'm about 99% sure, but there's always that 1% chance.
What would be the motivation of a family member for her
Money.
disappearance? Yeah, but we don't know that. They're fake, the ransom notes.
It's just opportunity.
No, I think that Franklin notes are fake.
Nicole,
They're fake.
one is thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
On the bottom,
Watch me on the clock.
I will.
I'm gonna break it
I
down.
love that.
Yes, yes. I have a marker.
Yeah.
Where is the Sharpie? Do you have, no, I need a Sharpie, I can't write. Who has a Sharpie? I have one in my usually there's mutual respect, but there is, people always are like, FBI, because they think that we think about it. Yeah, my pleasure. Sure, yeah. I don't know if you want to like in front of the, like. Yeah. I know, I'm like, like this table. I got my pens and my napkins.
Mike, you wanna go there, on the other side, and I'll take a photo?
My pleasure. Sorry I couldn't answer all your questions, but I'm not a conspiracy. Like, I'm not saying I don't, like the COVID thing, like I know that's like a scam. Like, when it comes to hardcore evidence, like it's hard to dispute it when they say,
Like now at least we have all these like sleuths, we don't want to be able to.
yeah, no, I mean, this one's going to trial, and I think everything's in for the trial.
Thanks again.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I send you at the end. I take my Spanish.
Thank you.
Oh,
is it?
My pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, he's gonna get his taxi.
Inez, will you take a picture?
Yeah, all right, spots.
Thanks.
Can we have pictures?
Okay, Barbara, where you guys go? Where you guys
Oh, okay, so you're glad. I appreciate that. Yeah, when I go to those kind of.
Across the street.
Just two ends?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, he loves Trump.
Oh, I love Trump too.
So do I.
Yeah, President Trump. I didn't bring that picture. President Trump endorsed my book, so.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's the best. You should have put the picture of me and Trump on.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
No, I don't
Aw.
no, I don't.
He endorsed her book.
No, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, he invited me to White House the day before it launched. He was very generous.
But I mean, I would think that the FBI is getting definitely way cleaned up now. I mean, this is
They're
so much.
working hard.
Because the FBI too, they came in, the all woke, like, they can't survive in our new administration.
Oh, you want him on here too?
Yeah.
Okay, how do you spell it?
T-E-T. L-E-Y. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Tetley, Lisa, and Bloom.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. I never read a book to a dog. I feel like
That's your child, okay?
this is special. No, I like it. It's like there's a first for everything. I love it. I'm glad I left space for him up there at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so somebody else? Okay, yeah, a friend of mine, she's a really book.
Okay. On the spelling,
And she says Trump saved her
Is it
life.
P-E-N-E-L-O?
Yeah, just Penelope. P-N-E.
L-O-P.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
She loves President Trump too. Does she love Trump like we do?
Yeah, it's interesting because she never paid attention to politics until she was diagnosed with second stage breast cancer. And she had to have a double mastectomy, she was in the hospital, and she worked on his life until then, and then she started watching the news. And she just wanted to be alive to know what Trump was going to do next day. So she said, Trump saved my life.
Who
She
are
had
you?
no kids, she was never married. So she said Trump kept her alive because she just didn't want to die. She wanted to know what Trump was going to do next day.
That's amazing. I love that story. That's awesome. I like that. I'm gonna tell President Trump.
Yeah, so yeah, I said, I said to my dog, I said, la la, believe it or not, I said, we're gonna be in the White House, and my friend said, you saved her life.
Oh.
Are you friends with Jesse Waters and Graham Druck? Are you
I
friends
would say friends. I mean, I know them.
Okay, but I'm gonna, one second, somebody else had,
Yeah, like they kept wanting me to go on with the story. And I was already committed to Sean's show, so I'm sure they're like, are you just gonna go on one?
What? Who is Sean Hannity?
Yeah.
He's amazing.
I mean, I love Hannity. Like Tucker was there when I first. Tucker was there when I first went to Fox. I let Hannity. They're all.
Tucker's too
They're
crazy
all-
now.
Yeah, no, I never. Yeah. So when I first went on prime time on Fox in New York, when they put me out to New York, so it was Hannity's show that I went on first. So I've always kind of felt a connection to Hannity, and they are just the nicest people. Yeah, he's had me on 10 nights in a row. Like, so if you're on Hannity, it's like you're not going on the other shows. Like, you're just being very, like they're very like exclusive. Like when I'm on with Maria Bartiromo, you're only going.
I love her. I've always liked her.
She's amazing.
She has a great presence on TV. She goes back decades. She made such a career for herself.
She's so
I'm a
smart.
New Yorker.
Yeah. But she's
Stella, let me get a
she's
photo.
why I'm at Fox.
Really?
Yeah, she's
That's
the one
awesome.
that got
I
me.
didn't even say that.